A pizza crust, thrown away like ordinary trash. That was one of the pieces of evidence that helped expose a killer who had been hiding for years. Does that even sound possible? For more than a decade, the Gilgo Beach murders haunted Long Island. Women disappeared. Their remains were found near the same stretch of road. Families waited for answers. And the man police were searching for seemed to vanish into normal life. Then investigators recovered DNA from something he threw away in Manhattan, a pizza crust. And that ordinary piece of trash helped lead them to a Long Island architect hiding in plain sight. This is Nightfall Case Files. And tonight, we are looking at one of the most disturbing true crime cases in modern American history, the Gilgo Beach killings. The story begins in 2010. Police were searching for a missing woman named Shannon Gilbert on Long Island, New York. That search led them to something far bigger than anyone expected. Along Ocean Parkway, near Gilgo Beach, police began finding human remains. At first, it was one discovery, then another, then another. Soon, the case became one of the most terrifying investigations Long Island had ever seen. The victims were women. Many were young. Many were vulnerable. Several had advertised online. They disappeared at different times, but their remains were found in the same general area, hidden near the brush, marshes, and dunes along a quiet stretch of road, a place people drove past without knowing what was there. The case became known across the country, the Gilgo Beach murders. And for years, there was no arrest, no clear answer, no face to put behind the horror. Families waited. Investigators searched. True crime communities followed every clue. And Long Island lived with one question: who had done this? The first group of victims became known as the Gilgo Four: Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and Amber Lynn Costello. Their cases became central to the investigation. They were young women with lives, families, and people who loved them. But to the killer, prosecutors later said, they were targets. The pattern was disturbing. The victims disappeared after contact with someone who appeared to know how to avoid attention. Burner phones, careful movements, a dark vehicle, online contact, and a man who seemed to understand how to hide behind ordinary life. For years, the man police were looking for was not living in the shadows. He was living in plain sight. His name was Rex Heuermann, a Long Island architect, a man with an office in Manhattan, a house in Massapequa Park, a family, a professional life. From the outside, he did not look like the center of one of America's darkest serial murder investigations. He looked ordinary. But investigators would later say that ordinary image hid something horrifying. The case remained cold for years. Then, in 2022, a new task force began re-examining the evidence. They went back through old records, witness statements, phone data, vehicle information, DNA, and slowly, pieces that had been scattered for years began to connect. One of those pieces was a dark-colored Chevrolet Avalanche. A witness had connected a vehicle like that to the disappearance of Amber Lynn Costello. Investigators looked deeper. They checked vehicle records. They reviewed old leads. And that vehicle became one of the first major paths toward Rex Heuermann. Then came the phone records. Authorities reviewed burner phones believed to have been used to contact victims. They looked at where those phones had been active. They compared the locations with other phone data. And according to prosecutors, the movements began pointing toward one man, Rex Heuermann. But suspicion was not enough. Investigators needed evidence that could survive in court. And that is where the pizza crust enters the story. In January 2023, surveillance investigators watched Heuermann in Manhattan. He was seen throwing away a pizza box. Inside that box was leftover pizza crust. To almost anyone else, it was trash. But to investigators, it was potential DNA. They recovered it. They tested it. And according to prosecutors, DNA from that discarded pizza crust helped connect Heuermann to evidence linked to the victims. Think about that. A case that haunted Long Island for more than 10 years. Families waiting, detectives searching, theories spreading. And one of the key breaks came from something as ordinary as leftover pizza. That is what makes forensic work so powerful. A killer can use burner phones. He can move carefully. He can hide behind a normal job. He can walk through Manhattan like any other professional. But sometimes, he cannot escape what he leaves behind. A hair, a phone signal, a vehicle record, a discarded crust. In July 2023, Rex Heuermann was arrested. He was taken into custody near his Manhattan office. The man who had lived for years as an architect was now accused of being the man behind the Gilgo Beach killings. At first, he pleaded not guilty, but the case kept growing. Investigators searched his home. They reviewed digital evidence. They examined phone records. They looked at DNA. They connected him to more victims. And the story became even darker. Prosecutors later said the killings stretched across years. The victims included Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Amber Lynn Costello, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, Sandra Costilla, and Karen Vergata. In April 2026, Heuermann pleaded guilty to the murders of 7 women. He also admitted to killing an 8th. Authorities said he had strangled his victims, and in some cases, the crimes involved dismemberment. This is not just a story about how a killer was caught. It is a story about how long victims' families waited to hear the truth. Because for years, the women in this case were treated by some people as if they were only part of a headline. But they were not just names in a file. Melissa, Megan, Maureen, Amber, Jessica, Valerie, Sandra, Karen. They were daughters, mothers, friends, human beings. And the horror of the Gilgo Beach case is that someone counted on the world looking away. Many of the victims were vulnerable. Many had been working as escorts. And cases involving vulnerable women can be ignored, delayed, or dismissed for far too long. But the evidence did not disappear. The phones did not disappear. The vehicle records did not disappear. The DNA did not disappear. And eventually, even a piece of trash became part of the trail. The most disturbing part of this case is not only the number of victims, it is how normal everything looked from the outside. An architect, a commuter, a professional office, a suburban home, a man walking through the city with a pizza box. And behind that normal life, investigators say, was a long trail of violence and death. The Gilgo Beach case is a reminder that sometimes the truth is not found in one dramatic confession. Sometimes it is found in small details. A road, a car, a phone, a hair, a pizza box, a crust left behind in the trash. Tiny mistakes, ordinary objects, the kind of things most people would never think about. But sometimes, those are the details that bring the truth into the light. So tell me, what is the most disturbing part of this case? The fact that he hid for so long? The fact that he looked so normal? Or the fact that one of the biggest breaks came from something as ordinary as a pizza crust? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.